Dr. Samuel Gyamfi, who will be our guest speaker here. Samuel Gyamfi is a multilingual medical doctor. Emphasis on multilingual, so you can decide which language you want him to speak, actually. He's a multilingual medical doctor and a public health expert with about 9 years' experience in health promotion, global health advocacy, and health leadership. He's the founder of Healthrope International and the vice president of Yanda Africa NGO. He's also the chairman and the coordinator of the CSAYN Health Advancement Program. He's a member of the UN Committee on Food Security and a former AWAS Global Youth Ambassador. Doctor, it's a pleasure to have you in our midst, and we really look forward to learning from your experience. Thank you, sir.
Hello. Hello. I know that it is quite difficult to be the last speaker, or let's say the penultimate speaker, especially when people have been quite tired through the day. But don't worry, I don't think I will bother you that much. I'll try to be smooth and sweet, okay? So first of all, I'd like to thank the organizers. I'd like to thank my brother for inviting me for this event, and I thank God for being here. And I also like to thank all of you for the opportunity to stand in front of you and share my insights with you. So, like my colleague said, I'm a medical doctor, so I have been a medical doctor for a while, and I've been an entrepreneur for about 9 years. Over these 9 years, I've set up 3 institutions, and I've also helped set up several other institutions that were not necessarily mine. And I have vast experience, and today I am here to share a lot more about you on what we are all calling collective intelligence. So, if you see the first slide, you can see Healthrope International. That's one of my institutions that I set up, and that is a health think tank. And we'll be talking about collective intelligence, but I'll gear a lot more towards health. And that is why you see that I'm presenting Healthrope and not any other institution of mine. So now, you see on the screen, you see GG, you see Global, you see Game, you see Amazon, you see Volkswagen, you see McDonald's. Now, these were companies that usually only existed in the West some years back. But now if you go to a country like Ghana, you have Volkswagen has an assembly plant there. If you come to Morocco, you see Global. You go to Ghana, you see Global. You see GG in Nigeria, you see GG in Ghana. What is it trying to do? Is that over time, the world became a global village. And because that the West took the lead, the rest of the world tried to catch up with them. And what actually happens, like what we call globalization, is that this product exists somewhere with a different set of people, and when they bring it down to the other parts of the world, these people have different cultures. And because they have different cultures, these products are adapted to them. So I choose to call globalization, that's how I choose to call it, contextualized globalization. So it's like globalization tailored to you, to your context. So what are the different kinds of globalization? These are not all the different kinds of globalization, but on this slide, in the middle here, you can see a computer in the middle that signifies technology. Technology is the drive. You know, before, in the advanced world, technology was quite advanced. Then later on, in the other developing countries, we were able to catch up. One of the many ways that the developing countries were able to catch up with the advanced world in terms of technology is the use of smartphones. So you have now technology at the center. Thanks to technology, you can be here and be involved in anything in the world. So we now have ecological globalization, where you have everywhere in this school. I mean, I've taken a tour of the school. I like to learn a lot from my environment. And you see a lot that, when I came the first night, so I tried to park my car, and I was like, wow, the parking lot has, normally instead of just having the lines in between, you have a bit of a lawn in between the parking lots. I was like, that is quite innovative. So the world is trying to get more ecological, getting green. That is why we see this picture of the COP22 and all. And then we now have political globalization, where the whole world is gearing towards democracy. Everybody's saying, okay, we don't want dictatorship, we want democracy. So when they hear that there's a coup d'etat somewhere, then everybody frowns on it. Then we now have cultural globalization, where you have people, like here I showed Africans actually celebrating Halloween, for example. Recently, there was the Ashanti Kingdom celebrating 25 years, and there were some white people that came over with saxophones playing during the Durban. Normally, saxophones are not a part of our Durban. We use drums, we use phantom drum, but the whites also try to imbibe our culture. We also try to imbibe their culture. It's like everybody's trying to learn from somebody. We are now in Morocco. Being in Morocco, we've learned to eat things like tagine, couscous. That is sort of imbibing Moroccan culture. And then we have what is the most important thing. Even if it is not the most important thing to a lot of people, that is what it is. We see to be the most important. That's the globalization of an economy, where we're trying to have single economies, having sort of trade agreements, the free movement of goods, free movement of services. That's why you can be here, order your goods from another continent. They come through FedEx, they come through whatever means, container shipped. That is what it is. But what if I told you there's a common denominator with all of these? And what do you think is the common denominator? A healthy workforce. You know, now in our context, we talk a lot about artificial intelligence, and we're talking a lot about robots, and we're talking a lot about phones and technologies. And we've gotten so invested in these to the point that we forget that the human being is still at the center of all of these. Because it's the human that actually invented artificial intelligence. The human invented the car. The human invented the aeroplanes. The human invented a lot of things. Recently, you remembered when there was the Boeing 787 Maxes or 737 Maxes that crashed. They crashed because a new technology was brought on board, and the technology was sort of privileged above the pilots having control. And eventually, during the testings, the technologies failed, and the planes crashed, and we had Ethiopian Airlines crash, and I think Lion Airlines crashed, and they had to recall the planes and work it out. So, as we work on artificial intelligence without human guidance is a catastrophe. So it is important to have a workforce, and the workforce must be healthy. Because, for example, I'm a medical doctor. If, as I'm talking to you now, if you're suffering from diarrhea, would you want to listen to me? No. You wouldn't have the strength to listen to me. If I'm talking to you suffering from a headache or whatever, what I'm saying is going to be rubbish. So it is important for a human being to be healthy. And when the human being is healthy, then he can find solutions to the world's problems. It's only healthy people that can find solutions. So this is just to put things in context. In the World War I, you see, after World War I lasted 1914, 1992, 1918. Right after that, like stock prices collapsed, the world went into recession. You know, when there's war, a lot of it is invested into arms, and then there are bombings everywhere, so people are injured and people are not in good health. So the whole economy crashed. After that, right after the World War, there was the Spanish flu. Spanish flu, 1918 to 1920. It led to about 6 to 8% of the contraction of the economy, the global economy. Because after World War, everything was crashed. Health systems were sort of broken down. Things weren't really working well. Then the flu hits, and then everything scatters about. Then right after that, then we have World War II. When World War II, by the time World War II ended, it's like, say, Europe and Asia could no longer even produce goods for themselves to be able to even export. So at that time, they were the main producers in the world, and that also led to an economic recession. And then recently, in modern dispensation, we had COVID-19. So that is what we were able to live through. And we all have seen what has happened after COVID-19. You are all here, you are researchers, I don't need to repeat to you. Prices of things have gone up, people have lost their jobs, a whole lot of things have gone down. People have not been in good health. There are secondary effects of the vaccines, a whole lot of things going on. So now, this is one thing that you've gotten to know. As you can see, in history, we had things like the Spanish flu, we've had wars. Even currently, we're even having a war, Russia, Ukraine. You realize that the problems of the world have not really changed. They come, they go, hide a bit, and then they come back again. So now, over the past few years, about 30, 40 years ago, if you talk about Africa, you're only thinking about things like HIV, malaria, infectious diseases, let me put it that way. But now, because we are in a localized context, or a globalized context, we have what we call demographic changes. A lot of things have changed. Right now, we are all working in IT, we are all using our phones, most of the jobs we do, we are sitting down, obesity, people putting on weight and all. So the same diseases that used to be in the West are here. And thanks to globalization, infectious diseases from our part of the world also go to the other side. Because, for example, in a place like Morocco, there is no malaria here, but somebody can actually bring malaria from a different country where there's malaria. That is sort of exported or imported malaria, whichever way you're going to put it. So with the globalized context, the problems become double. Whereas we solve one problem in one place, the problem now becomes double. So now we sort of start having a double disease burden and all. All of these are going to have an impact in about 20, 30 years from now. So now, if we're going to have these levels of impact, even if we have technology, are we going to be that effective? So if you look over here, like the world's deadliest diseases in history, we had like the Black Death, smallpox killing about 5.6 million people. You have like, say, the third plague. You have COVID-19 killing about 5.7. If you even watch this graph, COVID-19 is not the worst the world has seen. There has actually been worse than what the world has seen. And in our lifetime, it is possible that there could be something worse than COVID that could come. And that is why we are going to school. I'm glad that I'm in a university setting, because I believe that as intellectuals, we are not just supposed to look at it now. We are supposed to think into the future. And that is what triggers our innovation, to try to think ahead of problems and come up with solutions that when these problems come, as and when we are able to sort of block them. Now, so I was talking about chronic diseases. You can see this from WHO statistics, the kind of diseases that actually impact people. Now, the number one killer is no longer things like infections. You have things like cancer, ischemic heart disease, a whole lot of things. And all of these are due to globalization, because our eating habits, everything is being changed. And also the world is moving at a very fast pace. And because the world is moving at a fast pace, like recently, if you watch, get an example. At first, internet was very slow. Then we started having things like 2G, then 3G, then 4G, then 5G. Now, Japan is thinking of launching the 6G. Now things are moving at a fast rate. A lot of jobs are now technology-based jobs. You have to think like ahead. Now, all of these things needing to produce results at this constant rate and at this fast pace actually produces a lot of stress in people. So the stress leads to a lot of these chronic diseases and a lot of these chronic issues. And that is why you have things like cancer being on the rise, things like kidney disease being on the rise, because you have lots of young people suffering from high blood pressure and a lot of things working and not also working at the same time. So here I have a slide here. Sick employees cost employers between 150 billion to about 250 billion. This is from the Harvard Business Review. And according to The Guardian, sick leave is on an all-time high in the UK. These are places where they take a lot of records, so they have these statistics. So I'm sure it is also going to be the same in our context. So I spoke about stress, I'll be skipping. So now, these are the recommendations I have with this particular presentation I made. And as students and as people in collective intelligence, Because from what I learned a lot from you, from what you said, with collective intelligence, you go to people, you identify a problem, you go to them, you ask them what they think the problem is, then both of you think together. That is what entrepreneurship is. Entrepreneurship is identifying a problem and then looking for a solution to it. So now, the chances that some of you could become entrepreneurs or could work in companies that employ lots of people, one thing you should always keep in mind is people-centered entrepreneurship. Whenever you are developing programs, make sure it is centered on people. I know in companies, most of the time we look at things like revenue, expenses, we look at numbers, and we usually say things like an employee can be easily replaced. But one thing we should forget is that humans are not like robots. You can take iPhone 14 Pro Max or 15 Pro Max, you can have them all have the same competence, the same skills, the same everything, because they are robots and they are actually designed the same way. But with humans, everybody is unique. If you lose person A, what person A can do can be done by person B, but person B cannot do it exactly the same way person A can do. And all the inventions we had in the world were done by, sometimes brought up by one person. People like Einstein, they come up with inventions, with laws, just one person. So we should have people-centered approach, even if we are gearing towards the use of more and new technologies. And also, companies should invest in health. Like there are a lot of companies that do not even have things like safety and security or workplace safety and security. It is very important because sometimes even something as simple, for example, the chair you're sitting on is ergonomic. You sit on it, it's designed in such a way that when you sit on it, you're not going to have back pain or whatever. Imagine working in a company where it looks nice and all, but the infrastructure over there are going to make you sick after 10 years, after 8 years or whatever. So companies should have health units that actually look into how they are going to help their workplaces become safe. Because apart from your home, the next place you stay the most of the time is your workplace. And then companies should invest in medical research. I showed you the slide where sick employees cost up to 150 billion to 250 billion. So it means that if companies actually invest and actually give more into medical research, the data from this medical research will allow them to foresee and help their employees stay healthy. And when they stay healthy, this money would be saved. And you'll be able to do business well. And also, we're talking about collective intelligence. Now, collective intelligence has got very complicated. We're talking about data sharing. And of course, there are a lot of rules on data privacy and all. These are things that, like, say, as academicians, we should conduct more research on as to how we can effectively share data without actually violating people's rights. Because if we are able to share data appropriately, then we can be able to help each other appropriately. Because, for example, hypertension in Canada is the same as hypertension in Nigeria. Diabetes in maybe Uganda is the same as diabetes in Ghana. But if we are able to sort of like pool resources and companies are able to have enough data on their employees and all, and have a framework that can allow these data be shared, but without infringing on people's rights, then we can be able to study this data and predict the future and be better ready for anything that would come. And then, of course, new innovations. So that is why wonderful schools like this are set up. And like I like the collective intelligence program because it's more like it incubates you, it teaches you to think. And I think that as young people, as we wanting to be entrepreneurs and all, sometimes we are so concerned about the suit and the flashy stuff. What we need to think is we being thinkers. Thinkers, and we need to be dreamers. And when we dream, then we must believe, we must be believers. And then when we believe in our dreams, then we can actually take action. And then we solve problems. And this is all that I've got to share with you. I hope I didn't bore you. Thank you. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I'll be available to take the questions too. Can somebody please get in the mic?
So thank you. My name is Justia Baluti. I'm a medical student, and I came with the community of foreigners in Morocco, CESAM. So I have a question about just the health sector. So since we're talking about globalization, it's about like a contextualized globalization. So what I want to know, actually, I'm working in a project in a community of Congolese students in the health sector. So basically, it's a how do you call it? Non-profit organization. So I want, what's your point of view about how to apply globalization in that context of health? So because basically to help those kind of community to grow, it needs money. And for our community, we're just starting. We are just starting. So I want to know what ways, simple ways that we can use to have a globalization point of, like a globalization, how can I say it? A contextualized globalization to help the community to grow, and also like help students in Morocco to understand that their health is important. So I don't know if you get a question. So.
Okay, so if I understand the question, you're helping students to understand that their health is important.
Yeah, basically.
So they are the target audience.
Of course, yes.
Okay, you're helping them to get to understand that their health is important. Okay, it's very simple. You have to get them to first of all know what is right. Yeah. In medicine, before we study pathology, we study physiology. You need to know what is right first, and it is on the basis of you knowing what is right that you can now channel what is wrong to them. Mm-hmm. And when you want to get a particular target audience to adhere to something, you have to look at what is very important to them. Mm-hmm. For example, to a student, what is important to a student is to be able to get his grades, like finish school, like get good grades, and after that, be able to get a good job. Mm-hmm. So now, if you're able to explain and describe to the students how taking care of their health will help them optimize their performance in school, mm-hmm. then automatically they would want to adhere to it, because school is their primary focus and they want to optimize it, so they are going to do it. Do you get what I'm saying?
I get you.
So in that way, you put it into their context.
Yeah, okay. So what about the financial, like the financial side? Because, sometimes to organize activities where people will come, basically because it's a non-profit organization, most of the time we have to maybe ask for donations to people. So how can we try to do what we want to do first, but also try to find a way to, for the association to get some financial,
I get what you mean. I mean, I've been in your shoes. About 10 years ago, I started an NGO, and it was just like that. Mm-hmm. Normally, this is what you should do. You go to, like I said, always go to an institution or a group on the basis of what they need. So, for example, let's say if you're telling Coca-Cola to come and sponsor your event, what is Coca-Cola going to get in return for sponsoring your event? You're not going to tell Coca-Cola, just come and sponsor my event because I think my event is important. It is important to you, but it is not important to Coca-Cola. So, for example, if I want to organize an event in a school, I can go meet the school principal, draw up a PowerPoint, explain to the school principal that we are hosting a health program. I know that when we come, we are going to use your electricity, we are going to use your water, we are going to use your security man and all. But this is what you're going to get in return. My students are going to come here, they're going to invite their other colleague students. We shall take some pictures. These pictures shall be put on social media, like, okay, what am I going to get to pay for, how do you call it, an entrepreneurship project? Okay, when you come to the entrepreneurship project, you'll be able to network. You will learn how to write your CV in the right way, in a professional manner, so that when you apply for jobs, you can get it. Then you can think of bringing in the value. Because one thing you should understand, money is everywhere, but money is very scarce. And money is difficult to find, and support is everywhere, but support is very scarce. Each time you require support, you have to demonstrate why you actually require the support. And always make sure you are giving more than what you're asking for. The world and great people are generous people. They give more than what they take. That is why the Wright brothers invented the aeroplane. They are not the only people benefiting from it. The whole world is benefiting from it. So anytime you want something to be taken serious, make sure you are giving your all and expect very little. And I think it will work. Any further question? Okay. Okay, please give it to him, and then after that, come to Lady. I'll come to you later, okay? So there.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, sir, for the insightful presentation. It was so much interesting. I have 2 points. One is a reflection or a comment, and second is a question related to your answer just now. So the first one is related to mainly the terminology, or let's say the discourse that is being used by yourself or many other speakers, which is more or less something that I don't understand. I don't understand why young entrepreneurs nowadays, especially Africans, let them be Moroccans, Nigerians, Ghanaians, whoever, are using post-colonial terms to describe humans. For example, you just described, for example, the whites and the blacks, the West and the South. So honestly, I don't think that's valid. I think that young entrepreneurs nowadays in the 21st century, people who are professionals, shouldn't be using that. We should think beyond that. We should just like act as if there isn't such a thing, because it isn't really valid anymore. And I think that's post-colonial terminology that isn't valid. For the second point is, okay, you talked about you should be given more than you're getting. And I don't think that's valid as well. Because speaking of CSR, practices of companies, we're talking here about very noble ethical practices. And we're saying that, okay, I want this money, I want this sponsorship, but I gotta show you something that you're winning. For example, we go here to Seoul at UM6P that is sponsoring most of the events. I don't think they care about that, because I've had this discussion with them, and I told them, okay, it's valid that you want something out of it. But Yahya, one guy, he told me, no, we don't want that. We want to see it manifested on you. We want to see the impact on you. So I think that ethics are way beyond that, and any company that is looking for something to win out of that CSR practice, that is actually something that is imposed on them. They gotta do it. It's part of their business model. Is not a company that is worth partnering with or asking sponsorship from, because we shouldn't play it that way. That's too materialistic, and that's my 2 points. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your points. And my brother, I will say something, but don't take it as though we are arguing. Just take it as though I'm sharing my point of view. You know, it is very important to understand that there is strength in accepting that we are diverse. If, for example, I accept that there is a blockade here, then when I'm coming, I lift my leg. Scientifically, or whatever you say, we are all humans. We have like blood, the same blood and everything. But whether you like it or not, we are different. We are different races. The idea is over here is not trying to say that races do not exist. The idea is to understand that we are different races. And when we say we are different races, then you cannot think about equity. For example, now I'm a medical doctor. I'm very much into futuristic medicine. Now we're thinking a lot more about things like genomic sequencing. You are my brother, you are Moroccan, I'm Ghanaian, we are both Africans. But I tell you that when it comes to our genomic sequencing, our genes are totally different. There are some medicines that would work on you that would not work on me. And that is what the world is getting to sort of like, say, develop new stuff where at a point in time we can take Dankwa here, and from his genomic sequence we can say that because of Dankwa's genetic background, is more likely to develop this or that disease, and this or that and that. So when I say white and black, I am not saying white and black in the context of racism. I am not a racist. But when I say white and black, I am saying white and black in the context of diversity. Because whether you like it or not, we are white, we are black, we are Indian, we are Asian, we are Caucasian, we are everything. But we are all one. And we are strong when we accept that we are one. So like I said, we are not arguing. I won't give you the chance to talk back. I'll give the floor to the lady.
Can we get back to the questions later? Time is fast spent. Can we come back to that?
Okay, thank you.
I sincerely apologize. We'll come back to that. Time is fast spent.
Token of appreciation for all you have done. Thank you so much.
I think they have.
So, Your Excellency, thank you so much, and we apologize for keeping you standing. But before I let you take your seat,